it blossomed into a lot of different things. I started working with kids at a school for foster kids, and I really got to learn a lot about what kids go through in the foster system, which is pretty traumatic. The kids, they really they don't really get to stay with one family. They get transferred from family to family. So that's almost like human trafficking. If you think about it, you're like always with different people. You never really have an opportunity to form a bond, or even when you do form a bond, you get broken. Your bonds get broken, you get taken away. So that, makes it so you don't want to form a bond.
Yeah.
So then you can understand why these kids are having so many different traumas and why they're going through all these different experiences. And the thing about the place that I was working at was, it's not like it was a school for foster kids. It was just a school where kids get kicked out of school and they don't have nowhere else to go. They just all happen to be foster kids.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like all of the kids that are foster kids are having these traumatic, events and experiences in their lives, and this is where they end up. And all of these kids were foster kids. But you don't have to be a foster kid to be there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was like, man, this is a real problem. Because we're blaming people for we're creating these people in our society that aren't going to be productive because we're manufacturing them.
Yeah.
Through the foster system.
Yeah, no, I was adopted, and then so my mom and my dad, they had, before they adopted me, they took care of foster kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that there's a lot of times I know at least probably twice where they tried to adopt a kid, and it was the court that got in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'm like, he's good enough to stay here temporarily, and he's well taken care of, but. We can't make it a home.
Right.
It didn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And so they're basically owned and controlled by the state. Those kids are owned and controlled by the state, and the state just moves them around. It's just, I don't know, it's pretty insane.
It is. It's hard to have stability. You need. It's important for a child. It's important to have stability, and that's why if you're gonna have a kid, don't have kids if you're not gonna take care of them, and if you're gonna have sex. And you get pregnant, you should know that the number one role of sex is reproduction. So don't be surprised
when babies pop out.
Yeah. So my last interview.
Yeah.
With Grant Butcher. I can't really say his name. It looks like Butcher, but it's not. It's spelled. But he talked about how he was in the middle. He was talking about something, and he talked about how his parents stayed together.
Yeah.
And then he didn't realize when he was a kid how much of an advantage that he gave him. And he was talking about he's not having to worry about that. Really let me focus on school and all that stuff. And he's people don't realize how much having a stable family or put together or your dad's not beating your wife, or, his wife or something, just a good home actually does for kids.
Right.
Yeah. So, sorry.
It's super important.
All right.
Know? So, anyway, I went to that school and I ended up volunteering there. When I first came here, I was volunteering at Prime Boxing. You ever heard of Prime Boxing?
I have.
Okay. So the guy who owns that is a friend of mine. His name is Charles Law. He actually is the one that invited me to come to Fort Wayne.
Gotcha.
So I come down here, and I really wanted to come because he owned that gym, and he had a youth program, and I really I'm passionate about youth mentorship. That ended up running its course, and then I ended up going to this other place and volunteering there. And that's when I started to really run into all these foster kids, which was a whole other demographic of kids, because the other kids weren't foster kids.
Yeah.
They were just kids from the neighborhood or, in a different whatever situation, but they weren't from a foster system.
Yeah.
So this is the other school I went to is where I started really learning a lot about the traumas that kids are going through and experiencing. And when I would watch it, because what would happen is the kids would throw fits, they would flip out. And they would be out of control, throw the desk, flip out, want to fight, whatever. But then I realized, this kid is totally unconscious. His actions right now are unconscious. Yelling at him ain't gonna do nothing. Trying to fight him or nothing is not gonna do nothing. The only thing we need to be doing is trying to calm him down.
Yeah.
Because he needs to learn how to control his emotions. So we really need to be focusing on how to help him control his emotional reactions and responses, because this is going to get him in trouble. This is why he's getting in trouble, because he can't control these emotional reactions to circumstances. And now in our school system, we have a bunch of like a lot of the kids would tell me stories about different teachers that would say there's some of the things that the kids told me the teacher said to them. I'm like, of course that kid flipped out on you.
Yeah.
Like, he's a person. You're talking about a human being with a mind and a brain and a subconscious mind and traumas and responses.
Not defending like teachers saying dumb, because there's a lot. They do say some dumb shit to kids. But at the same time, like, I understand from like with law enforcement and teachers, like when you deal and then like you deal with that day in and day out, it has a tendency to like just jaded. Like dull you. You know what I mean? Like you become like, and then you're like, oh, that's just, and then you tried to, because I've tried, like I worked at a place, and some like I don't take things personal. So I'm just like, I'm there like talking to the kids and stuff, and then one kid's like, oh, he had an iron and a crayon. He's like, I'm burning the place down. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna go call somebody. Like you like, we'll see what happens first. Like I don't know. I'm not gonna tackle you. You like, because they trained you how like, oh, you can take them out, they're gonna hurt, and I'm like, I'm not putting my hands on it. It's just him with a crayon and iron. So, like, but I understand how like, and some of those places where they help you, or I forget what this place is called, but it's like, if you lose your parents, or if sometimes if you get in trouble, they'll take you there. And station. So like, there's some sad stories, and then like they act out, and they do stuff, but like I can understand how like over time, you can just become like, he's just another kid that's gonna go back to he's gonna get out here, go to jail. You know what I mean? Like, they're just pushing them through, and like, because you try to help some, and then some like they reject you. And like, but it takes time. But then you see that, I'm sure a lot of the teachers have put time in the kids and then just watched them go down the drain.
I can understand that.
Which, again, doesn't excuse saying some dumb stuff to a kid, but I can understand the mindset.
The thing is that you're not going to save all the kids.
Yeah.
It's like playing the lottery. You just have to keep talking to them. You just have to keep connecting. You just have to keep doing what you do. You got to stay in your rhythm.
Yeah.
You can't let yourself get to the point where you're like, well, it ain't even worth it. Forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then that's the one time when you're going to need to be there for somebody who you could have helped. Yeah. That's going to be that time. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you got to, and then the thing is, it like for kids, it only really takes one person. It takes one person showing up and saying, I care about you.
Yeah.
I want to help you. This one kid, man, like, he followed me from Prime to that place. Yeah. And like, I met him at Prime, and when we were at Prime, we were doing like some fundraisers. He got us all kicked out of our fundraiser.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, I was mad at the kid. At the same time, I just met him.
Yeah.
I just met this kid, and I'm like, bro, you got us all kicked out of here, bro, because we've been doing this we've been going strong for months. He shows up, and then the next day, it's all over.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? So, but then anyway, I see this kid again, and I see him at the school. I'm volunteering that because he gets kids out of school.
Yeah.
I see him there, and this kid is so smart, has so much potential, so bright. He's got dyslexia, he's got trauma, things happen in his family that put him in a bad situation, but he has so much potential that he could be something, he could do something. But the trauma within him is so great. You know what I mean? Yeah. That he acts, it's like he's getting to the point where he doesn't care. Getting like police coming in and throwing him on the ground, that's just something that happens. That's just a part of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, that's like, we gotta do better, because like, there's so many, who knows, he could cure cancer.
Yeah.
There's so many people that could be valuable to our society, but we just toss them away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, to an extent, but they have some responsibility for that as well. So like, they have to be ready to, like you said, it could be one person, but if you're always pushing people away, like, and at some point, maybe like it was, they get to a point where like so many people missed out, and it just gets to a point where, because life, life doesn't, like we like to think that life has a bunch of happy endings, but life has a bunch of like
sad
endings too. And it doesn't, because the universe itself is indifferent. Consequences, your actions, your parents' actions, that they all these things. There's all these factors that come into play that influence us,
right,
or are in our outcomes. So, like, I honestly, like, we have failed. Like, our society has failed, especially like education, like parents, the way the families tear apart. Like and then like the generations after have been raised to basically be in that separated form. But I think, like, yeah, we have failed, but there's some at some point, like, there's not, without changing the system completely, like, there's no, like,
recourse.
Yeah, because culture. We earlier were talking about culture.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, is the culture has been changed so much that, like, we've lost our, like, family, like, bonds, because we used to have all that. So, like, if your mom and dad weren't no good, you had an aunt or uncle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like, there was more family involved, and now we're all kind of just like, I mean, like, nobody wants you. You know what I mean? Like, if and I've met lots of kids like that. Like, it's sad. And then even in my work, just even though they have a parent, like, that parent doesn't care. Like, they're outside, like, whenever, and it's just like that parent doesn't care. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm like, well, you can even say something to them, and they're like, oh, mind your own business. Like, all right, but when your kid's laid out in the pool of blood, because he's out here, trying to act like a thug, like, don't, like, don't be like, what were you doing? Like, no, I tried to be here before. Like, I tried to prevent it. And like, that's my experience. It's like, so often, like, you can care about somebody and try to, like, but the people who have the influence or the power to do something normally prevent that from anything from happening. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like there's a great separation.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in situations where it's visible that I'm making an impact on these kids.
Yeah.
It's visibly, you can see what's happening and that things are getting better and changing.
Yeah.
And then someone will come and stop that.
Yep.
It's insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you see that I'm helping, like, so you honestly don't care about them.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they do. Sorry, they destroy.
Yeah.
Like, and like, not just in, like, and you can look at that in, like, a lot of things. People will be doing something good, and, like, either the government or some person who, is offended because it's not them. Or,
yes, that's what it's literally that. It's like, because it's not you want to stop it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, it ain't about you.
Yeah, it's about the kids.
It's about these kids that I'm helping over here. Like, you needed me to come here to do this because you can't.
Yeah.
And because I did it and it's not you, now you want to stop it.
Yeah, like, you can't get it. Like, you can't have it both ways. Because, like, you know what I'm talking about. They'll come up to us and be like, oh, I can't control, Junior or whatever. Like, can you, like, if you see him, can you talk to him or whatever? And then I talk to him. But, like, even if I talk to him, like, I'm not his parent. You got to back it up or whatever. Like, and if he goes home and you're not.
Yeah.
Like, well, the biggest thing is, like, oh, yeah, I'm just, tired and all this other stuff. I'm like, are you tired or are you drunk? Because you show up drunk every day. Every time I have to talk to you about your kid, it's like, oh, well, I can smell alcohol in your breath. So, like, no wonder your kid's out here acting a fool. Every single time, doesn't matter what time of day.
Yeah.
And like, so then they're like, well, these kids, they don't listen to me. I'm like, why would they?
Like,
how can you listen to who you don't respect?
I don't want to listen.
Yeah.
How can you listen to who you don't respect?
Tell him, Jacob.
I mean, it's just, it doesn't make sense.
Are you tired or are you drunk?
Because when he started,
he was like, I'm drunk and high.
It's just, and then like that, I told you about what happened.
Yeah. The girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, basically, there was a bad event that happened, or was going to happen, but thankfully it didn't follow through, to where a child was in danger. And this is something that could have been prevented. I've tried to talk to these parents, tried to talk over and over again. Hey, I can hear you guys threatening each other. I can hear you guys, arguing every single day, so loud that, like, I don't even have to be near the apartment to hear you.
Yeah.
And so I'll knock on doors. You're always bothering us. You're always bothering us. Blah 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 blah. And then I go to leave. I leave the job, and there you go. She gets arrested and goes to prison.
Yeah.
So.
Did you lock the door? Okay, just making sure. Cause I know. Yeah.
I did, but she has my key. So.
Okay, just making sure. Cause I heard that noise. I'm paranoid when it comes to.
I can go check.
Yeah. Just make sure everyone's safe.
Yeah.
That's one of the security things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's like we do. We talk to like the parents, like, hey, your kid's out here doing this, like, and
you're talking about where you're doing security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, cause we just like some of the bad areas.
Yeah,
like,
low income housing.
Yeah, so it's like.
So you see exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
And then when I worked at I'm not gonna say it, but that place.
Yeah.
There was a kid there. He was actually aging out. So like, cause they can't keep him until they're 18.
Yeah.
And so he was aging out, but he was a smart. Like when I first got there, like, cause I was a Christian then, and he was like, "You're a Christian," and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, well, "What about Zeus and this and that?" And then when I was able to, I had some knowledge on it, and I was talking back and forth with him. He was like, and he got mad at me, and then he walked off, and then like, so I'd be there like in the middle of the night. It'd be like 12. And he'd get up, I'm like, you're supposed to be in your room. He'd be like, but did you know? And he'd start talking about the mythology. So like, that's all. And then I had to talk to him for a little while. I'm like, all right, guy, you gotta go to bed. Like, you can't force me. I'm like, I'm not gonna force you. Like, do I look like they paid me enough for me to be like, oh, come on, let's go? I'm like, let's just go to bed. And he's like, oh, I'm going, but I'm not because you told me to. I'm like, all right, I don't care how you get there.
Just go.
Yeah. Like,
to bring it back to a point. Oh. No, you're good. Just to bring it back to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Is the biggest thing is the word. Not the word is in the gospel, but the word is in words are powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this one guy, and he used to be an atheist, so he would always, ask me these common questions that don't really have answers. Is why does God allow evil? Stuff like that. What did this little baby do? Stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
We know the answer. That's sometimes it's better for people just to die than to go through a life of hell, right? Because God can see that, and so sometimes it's better for stuff to just end before it begins. But my point is that he contacted me like a month after that conversation. I was like, I don't know what happened, but I'm reading the Bible now.
Oh, that's good.
I'm converted. I'm not gonna go to church. He's in his process. He's like, I'm not gonna go to church, but I'm reading, trying to be a good person now. And I'm like,
I mean, literally, the thing is if you read the Bible, I know it's been changed over and over again, but the thing is that the life in it that is still in it, and if you read it, you will literally look around and you will be so much more aware of what you see, and your understanding will be so much greater, because you won't be wondering, because you'll have read it.
Yeah.
You look around and be like, oh yeah, that's this and that's that, and that. You just look around because it's all in there.
Oh yeah.
Everything we're going through, everything we're seeing, and all the stories that we live through in our life.
Yeah.
When you read the stories in the Bible, they're relevant to you.
All right, because human nature, like, humans were doing the same stuff, but like we may not have had the same technology, but like that don't change humans themselves. You could see all different types of humans in the Bible, like, and then it speaks to the human condition as well. And so like, and then I mean, if you believe in prophecies and stuff like that, like I do, but I'm just speaking to the broader audience, like, like you see that even if it describes what's going on now like perfectly, as if like they knew. But,
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how did all that happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's
well, regardless of your religion, you can't. I mean, you can with science now, but you can't really undo biology.
Yeah.
Like humans have an innate desire for certain things, and you're not going to be able to change that.
But science,
at least not current. It's going to take thousands and thousands to undo innate biology.
It can probably never be undone because it's written in the Word that the flesh is inherently evil.
Yeah.
Like the flesh is, so it's like, that's the thing, it's in the Word, is that there'll always be a battle between the spirit and the flesh.
Yeah.
And so you're always going to have desires. That's why it says don't yield to your temptations.
Yeah.
Because what he's telling you is don't give into your flesh, because your flesh is taking you to a place, a carnal place, but you're a spirit man.
Yeah.
You're beyond your body.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can, if you live this life as if you're only a fleshly being, you're going to be in a very fallen nature. Like the things that you're going to do, or you're going to not know why you shouldn't do certain things.
Yeah, because you don't have a reason not. Like
Exactly.
Nothing, yeah.
There's no law.
Yeah.
Saying I can't.
Yeah. And
So I will.
Yeah. Except for like, man-made law, but we all know man-made law isn't effective as
Principles.
Yeah.
You need to have moral principles of your own.
Yeah.
Like God wants us to have principles, not follow laws. Now we start out following laws just like a kid.
Yeah.
Like if you don't give a kid some rules, he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But after a while, he develops principles based on those rules himself, and that's when you start to have discernment. You know, because after a while, you're gonna be a grown adult.
Well, so like, you're gonna say something.
Well, I was gonna say just quick. That's why it says you battle against principalities and powers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not that you're battling. I mean, you are battling against spirits, sure, but it's more of a sense of what those spirits do to you, or what these desires that you have do to you over time, and what you develop for your kids, how you curse your future generations and or bless them.
That's right.
So every action you take, you can. I always say when they tell me that I don't want kids in this generation, I'm like, man, like you're just lazy.
Stupid.
It just means you're lazy because you don't want to be a good person, and so that you can break the cycle.
Yeah.
Like the same way you can have a negative snowball effect, you can have a positive snowball effect. But it's not going to happen unless you battle those principalities and those powers that are against you.
And go against the grain, and let them talk about you, and let them like call you whatever, and you know you. And the thing is that in this world, if you're good, you're gonna be hated.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to be good in this world because people are gonna hate you, resent you, and it's because they don't feel like they can live up to you. They can't, and they don't want to because it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
You know, so they're like, cool over here doing all that hard stuff, making it hard for me. Now I got to live up to your standards. Now these people expect me to do like you do. I ain't doing that. Get out of here. That's why, you know.
They think you're greater than what you are, and they're like, why you come over here acting like you're better than us? Why you come over here and acting like, oh, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not better than you at all, man. Like, I just repented 5 minutes ago.
I'm struggling different.
Yeah.
I'm no longer going with the flow.
Yeah.
I'm struggling against it, and it's a lot harder to struggle against something that, like, you don't got to be perfect, but you do got to struggle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, like, that's one of the main issues I have with mainstream Christianity, is that, like, now a lot of people think, like, you just believe in Jesus, but then, like, they're believing in Jesus, like, and, you know, they're, like, robbing from their crackhead neighbor. Like, sorry. That shouldn't be. But, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, they'll sit there and talk to you about Jesus, and then they'll be like, well, and they'll walk off, and then later that night, someone will come to you and they're half bloody, like, oh, that same person that's just talking to you, like, just jumped this person for some crack. And I'm like,
Hey, man, crack has some strong principalities.
Yeah. But then I'll be like, you know, next time I see him, I'm like, hey, like, did you do this? Like, yeah. And I'll be like, well, like, I thought you were just talking to me about, like, Jesus.
Right. And that's the biggest thing is it's better not to talk. And what I mean by that is people say they love Jesus or they believe in Jesus, but they don't even know who Jesus was or what he stood for.
Yeah.
And also what he stood against.
Yeah.
Everyone lives for what they stand for, but nobody lives for what they stand against.
Yeah.
Like everyone's like, oh, I don't want to tell people that I don't like this or that I don't like this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to tell people that what they're doing is wrong because I want to be super nice.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hurt feelings.
But you gotta hurt feelings.
Like, you have to. And it's fun not to hurt. Well, anyways, it's fun. It's fun to go against the grain. I like it because I love underdog stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more I read about the Bible and Jesus, the more I realize it's an underdog story. Yeah, okay, it's not an underdog because God's all powerful and he can't lose. But it's an underdog in a sense if it's not common. It's not like, it's actually the opposite effect. I used to be one of those cringy young kids that would always like empathize with like villains in the show or something like that. And it was like, as I got older and I'm like, what was I doing? Like that's, it's so common. Like you see everyday people acting like selfish and greedy. And then, but you don't see people being like, well, you can't do this. Why? Well, actually, never mind. I'm not going to say nothing.
Yeah, well, I admit I'm a villain. So I say I'm a villain with hero tendencies. Whereas most people try to like everyone thinks they're a good person, and they're like, and if you look at politicians, they're always trying to act like they're the hero and stuff.
Right.
Like no, I can admit that like I'm not. I don't always make the right decision. I'm always battling stuff. Like I'm not that guy that's on the white horse. Like I'm just like the dude that was like yesterday was pillaging and stuff, and then today I'm like that's kind of messed up. Like you know what I mean?
Like the crackhead.
Yeah. But,
Well, I can admit that I'm the villain, but in a different way though, because because I'm a villain just in people's story.
yeah,
Because in order for someone to be a victim, they have to assign someone the villain.
that's true.
Now, a lot of times when you're assertive and direct and you're confrontational about the truth and about righteousness, you will be assigned a villain. Because
Yeah.
people are going to be like, if you tell, man, a lot of people, like, I'll be telling them, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just confronting you about, and honestly, I'm doing it for you.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't care about you, I wouldn't
be here.
I wouldn't even spend my time going back and forth with you about this. I wouldn't waste my time. If I don't know you, if you do something crazy and I don't know you, I mean, you do you. You go on over there. But if you are somebody who I'm supposed to care about,
Yeah.
and you're doing something that's detrimental to you, I'm not just gonna let it slide.
Yeah.
Because I know that it's bad for you down the road.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna confront you right now. I'm gonna be the villain in your story. You're gonna get mad at me right now, and then later you're gonna come back and be like, "Man, I'm glad you told me that." But
Still did it. No.
Somebody, they did still do it. They did still do it, and they learned. But the thing is that I confronted them about what was going to happen, and it basically turned into a prophecy.
Yeah, because you just got like that's what I was just getting ready to say. I was like, I feel like the prophets when you're like, oh, because I've watched enough people, see enough outcomes that I could when someone's like, hey, you keep doing that, like this is gonna happen. And they're like, and then like a week later, like it happens. I'm like, but I don't even tell them I told it so anymore. I'm like, you can do what you want. Like I just let you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's when I had to really detach from like being liked.
Yeah.
Because I used to be likable. When I was younger, I was likable. People liked me. They're like, "Oh, Alan, you're funny," or whatever, and they liked me. And then I had to like let go of that. Like, I don't care if you like me.
Yeah.
Because I got a duty to you. I have an obligation to you.
Yeah.
To be real with you and keep it real.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you're not gonna like me, and you're not gonna like what I have to say. But I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah. And like I got to the point where like I'm old enough. I used to go like at the health club or whatnot, and I'd be like preaching and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even do that stuff no more.
Yeah.
Now I wait for opportunities.
That's
so like
it.
everyone likes to talk about. So they always say that you don't talk about politics and religion, but I can tell you that eventually people talk about politics and religion. So like I wait for like it doesn't even have to be about like Christianity or anything like that. It could be about like ancient aliens. Sometimes people talk about, and then like I'm like, oh, have you ever read the Canaanite text? Have you ever read like the Sumerian text? Have you ever? I've read some of that stuff. So now I have something to talk about. Like, did you know the Greek gods are the same gods as the Canaanite gods and the Sumerian gods? Mm-hmm. They just took it, and it's you open up that conversation from there, and then like it often leads to like, and then eventually it's like, well, Jesus is just another, and then you're like, well, not necessarily, because when you start going through the different things, and like some people actually stole from the Jesus story, and then when you go into the detail, because people like religion is one of those things where people are just sloppy. Well, they'll be like, oh well, Horus rose again, and this rose, but when you read the story, they're really not the same at all. Like, or was it Horus? What are the Egyptians? He gets cut into pieces, and then you have the phallic thing, and all that stuff. She fashions a
Osiris.
Yes.
Osiris was cut into pieces.
Yes, Osiris.
And then she took his phallus, and then she reanimated him and got pregnant with Horus to the temple and the pyramid.
Yeah. So, and then they take these stories, and then they kind of just mash it to kind of like jam them together to make them similar. And I'm like, no, you have to respect the religion. And in order to do that, you have to look at the details and then like let them be their own thing. You know what I mean? Like, I want to understand things. I don't want to just be right. You know what I mean?
That's you said a mouthful.
Yeah.
That's something I say to people. Like, I don't need to be right.
Yeah.
I don't need to be right. I want revelation.
Yeah.
I want uncovering. I want to know what's real. I want to know the truth. I want to walk around saying wrongness.
Yeah. Like So like today I say I'm not a Christian, but I follow the God of the Bible.
Yeah.
And like some people get confused at that, and I'm like, oh, because to me Christianity is a religion.
Right.
Because when you start looking at after like even the early church started like adding things to it, then you have like Aquinas or not Aquinas. What is his name? He's like, but he had I can't remember. But he had a heavy influence on Christianity. So much so that like in some circles it made like sex a bad thing. And that's actually kind of what influenced in America. I remember in the old TV shows they had two separate beds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a whole like Christian like thing backdrop behind that.
Mm-hmm.
But like like when you add things like when you take these ideas, and that's how we got so many different like Christian religions, because they are separate religions, because you know they'll even say that other denominations are lost or whatever, and some are like and some add like burdens that like smoking's a sin. I'm like, smoking's not a sin. Like you're not going to hell because you smoked a cigarette. Now like the addiction will kill you. Like you know what I mean? Like you pay for it in different ways, but like it's not. God's not up there like, oh, this guy's smoking. Like, you know what I mean? Like he just
God said everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
we're here on earth. We're
Yeah.
in a physical body. We can eat and taste fruit.
Yeah.
We can experience love and emotions.
Yeah.
Without this body, we can't experience emotions the same way.
Yeah.
Like we can have physical pleasures and different things, but everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Like you just can't be, you can't overdo it and overindulge. Indulgence is the sin.
Yeah.
That's the thing, overindulgence. Like you're just feeding the flesh like a glutton. You're just glutton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gluttony. Like, so it's just like we're here to experience and decide things. We've been given free will to make decisions about our experience.
And you pay for indulgence. So like there are some things that like consequent like so that sorry. What maybe actually made me believe in the Bible is when I read Deuteronomy, and I saw it talks about the blessing and the curses, and then what happens in the blessing and the curses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, like I can look at civilizations rises and falls, and it is like you can see that it is spelling it out like right there. And I'm like, oh, so when a nation loses itself, when it starts to punish the innocent, when it starts like corruption is spread, that's when the nation falls. And then that was a judgment against Israel, like the curses. And I'm like, oh, so then it really made it clear to me like consequences. So like, yeah, I might like, so like there's people out there doing drugs, they may never get arrested. Like some people might not even like, for a while, they might not even realize that person's like that, you know what I mean? But like maybe they take too much one time and then they're gone. And then now when, because like you said, indulgence, like I said, like the consequence of sin is death. So
the wages of sin.
Yeah,
yes.
So like your actions, you may not get paid for it here, but you'll pay for it like or in the open, but you'll definitely pay for it.
We're talking about cause and effect.
Yeah.
So literally, like cause and effect it's like that's one thing I learned. If someone doesn't believe in cause and effect,
they don't live in reality.
Yeah, they don't live in reality, and they're not accountable for anything they do. They're literally willing to do anything.
Yeah, there has to be a moral standard.
Yeah.
You can't live life saying, oh, I'm an atheist or I don't believe in anything. Well, then what's right and wrong?
Yeah.
And to be fair, like there are moral atheists, but they're borrowing off of the because they borrow off the foundation.
Everything.
Yeah. So like they have their ideas of what's moral, and that has been shaped because the United States was a primarily Christian nation, and then Europe too. Even like slavery in Europe was ended due to Christians, Wilberforce, like appealing to that moral fabric. Like
I can't understand atheism because I can't understand how you can't conceive that you were created by a creator. Like you're existing, you breathe, you walk around. Like, how?
It's I believe my moral standards are higher than God's, so therefore I'm not going to follow.
Well, it's indoctrination too, like science. So there's like popular science where, like you'll they only release so much, and then they keep a lot of the outdated stuff as if it's still true. So when people challenge that, even though it's and a lot of times these things in the scientific circles are already being challenged, like within among the people, they know like all right, so this thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like what's a replacement? But when it's here in the schools, they're still teaching it in the schools. There's still like, and if you question it, so like everyone that's been indoctrination, that's been indoctrinated with that, they protect those things. And then one day it comes out an article and they're like, oh, well, you know.
We didn't know what we were talking about.
Yeah, and then it's like no one bats an eye. They just go on with the next thing that gets.
So God created us in His image and likeness, right?
Yeah.
He created us like Him.
Yeah. Well, kind of like the image. So like it's image bear. So like the language there. So like it's more of like a role, and not so much that we look like God or like that. It's the role we play. So we're meant to be like God's hands on the earth. Like that's why He gave us the earth, made the earth, and He basically like in Genesis it says, like, you know, rule over the earth.
Mm-hmm. Do stuff.
Yeah, like that's what
create
we're supposed
some
to do.
stuff.
Yeah,
I created you. Now you create some stuff.
Yeah.
So it just keeps getting handed down, but it had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
We were created just like we create. Like if there's a problem, like we're sitting in chairs, right?
Yeah.
Because we needed to sit down, so we started making chairs. You know what I'm saying?
I'm tired of standing.
Yeah, like literally, like there was a problem, and we created some chairs, and then we had a solution, and it's like, oh, I need to hammer this nail.
Yeah.
I need to make a hammer. So we created hammers. Like that's why God created us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, because He created it. So you have the B'nai Elohim,
Yeah.
the sons of God, and then you have us, right? And so like when created us said, oh, hey, like you're gonna take. It even says that Adam's job was to tend to the garden.
Yeah.
Right. And like imagine if we hadn't fallen. Like that's what always makes me so angry. Because I'm like, man, if we hadn't fallen, this stuff would be like this would be an awesome world to live on.
Yeah.
Like no cancer, no nothing.
But then what? You wouldn't learn any lessons.
You wouldn't understand. Well, it's not that you wouldn't learn lessons; it's that you wouldn't understand the grace.
Well,
Yeah.
like
You wouldn't
You
know
wouldn't understand the
without
beauty of God.
But without duality, you can't learn lessons. You have to have resistance.
well, so like I'm not convinced that we would have never got to eat of the knowledge of the fruit of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil. I think that if we would have obeyed, we would have got to eat the fruit and got to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But it was all about obedience, and the fact that we got punished is because we disobeyed.
Right.
So like I think that even so like
So you're saying the knowledge without the experience.
yeah,
Because
like
if we eat the fruit, then we can download the knowledge like we're in the Matrix,
yeah,
and then we don't have to go through the experience.
the angels knew what they were doing. They knew that.
Actually, all of them didn't. That's why this is happening.
No, because so if you read Enoch, so I'm not saying that the fall of Lucifer and the story of Enoch is the same. Like those could be two separate rebellions. But when you read the story of Enoch, it says that they basically made a pact together because they were afraid that one of them, like, you know, they did like, oh, we're gonna do it, and then one of them wouldn't do it.
Back out.
Yep. So they made a pact together, and then that's when they took wives from humans and then taught them war and all that. I don't know what that story's like. It's not. I don't know. So like, there's it could be. It couldn't like the information. I know the Bible quotes Enoch or passages from Enoch. But like, you know.
But when the angels fell to the earth, they understood heavenly things but not earthly things. Because they'd never lived, most of them had never lived a corporeal life. This is corporeal life. So this is just a physical existence. They'd never lived in a physical, a lot of them never lived in a physical existence. So they didn't understand the implications of what happens when you come here and do things.
I disagree. I'm not like I think they knew exactly what they were doing because even in the stories in the Bible, like angels can become physical, and like I think they had enough knowledge to know the different, like what they were doing, exactly what they were doing. And I think Lucifer knew exactly what he was doing when he did, like even the serpent, like the story of the serpent, like the word for serpent can also mean shining one. It means like shiny brass. So the story could literally be like the shining one was the one. But you know how things get like mysticized, and then and I only say, I'm not saying that the Bible mysticized it, but I'm saying like using my brain, looking at what we've done today, knowing that the Bible, so like a lot of people say it's been changed, but most of the time they're just talking about like English translations. Like I'm like, I don't really care about that because all English translations are like, you know, there's English people translating into an English language, and there's multiple ways you can translate it sometimes. Sometimes there's things in the text that you have to make a decision because both things within the context make sense. So like you don't have a way of knowing which one exactly is what they meant sometimes. So then some people translate it this way and some people translate it other. Now, other things, I think, are translated the way they are on purpose to hide certain things, especially if you're from certain denominations or you have a certain agenda behind it. Yeah, but like, yeah, when you get into the Hebrew, when you start looking at the word, and like it changes the whole like story. But also knowing that like within the first 5 books, the Hebrew changes. Mm-hmm. So like it advances within the first 5 books, and you're like, well, like if it's all written by Moses, like why would it be different, right? But I mean, I'm not saying like don't get crucified saying like, yeah, you know. I'm just saying that like the evidence that I see is that like parts of the Bible may not be original to the text. It might have been like added backwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
And then like just looking through it, and then I'll attribute, like if you want to say the prophets wrote the parts that the prophets wrote, like I'll attribute that. The Gospels, they wrote the people, the names on it are from the people who, I even attribute that. But like there's things in there, like when you look at it and the way that it's written, like especially in the first 5 books where it talks about something from a place that they could have only talked about it after the event. You know what I mean? Like if you were not from that time but further in time, mm-hmm. So it's just clear that like some of that stuff is added, but it doesn't mean it's not the word of God. I don't know, but I always go off of the nature of God. Like, you know, like the things that talk. So like, you know, the 10 Commandments, basically. Like, love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And basically, you know, keep Shabbat, all that stuff. Don't sleep with your neighbor's wife. Don't steal. Don't kill somebody. Or, you know, don't murder someone. You can kill if you have to defend yourself, you know, but don't murder. Those are basics. And then if you look at Exodus, when like people say there's 613 laws or something like that. But when you look at Exodus and you see Moses break it down into terms to where, like, you know, if your neighbor's ox runs away, return it. You know what I mean? Like, simple things like that. And all he's doing is taking the 10. He's like, I'm going to show you how these apply in just regular life. Yeah. And then people have turned those into, like, you know.
Well, because those are semantics.
Yeah.
And not because the thing is that the principles are the derivative, like that's the foundation, like that's the moral principle. Yeah. So based off these principles, here's some semantic understandings to break it down to your relative experience. Yeah. You know, you got an ox, your neighbor ox running away. So basically, that's written by a man.
Yeah. That's definitely so. Explain. So like the text basically says this. So it'll say Yehovah. Like when I was there, his spirit, like he told me to write this down and tell you guys. And he says, now, I'm telling you guys, like, do what I say and it'll go well with you in the land. Yeah. But if you do the opposite, like, he's like, because this is what God is telling me. Yes. And like, you know, so he basically says that God tells him these things, and then that's when he goes out to command. And I think, like, I mean, think about it. You went up with the first commandments, and then you come back down, and they already have a golden bull. And you're like, I was gone for like a few hours.
You already got a bull. You already got to do God?
Like, even God's like, let me kill him.
Yes, we're the flesh. We're fallen.
Which, so, but like, you know, and I think that's why I think he was like, all right, this time, let me write it out.
Yeah, let me write this down for you.
Yeah, spell it out.
That's crazy.
But yeah, like, and then, like, but today, like, especially with, like, Christians, like, you even bring up, like, the Torah or, like, anything, and they're like, oh, those are the Jews things. I'm like, those are the Jews things. I'm like, well, Jesus was a Jew. He was an example, even back in the Old Testament. Yeah. They like to say it's law. I'm like, no, like, they didn't think that, like, the Torah saved you. They knew God saved you. He was gracious. Like, he even, like, it's stated in so many, like, it's so straightforward that I know Christians just don't read the Old Testament. Yes. And, like, it's not even called, it's not even the Old Testament. Like, that was coming up. Sorry, I'm going in.
Well, no, like, and what you're saying is like, yeah, it's an indoctrinated theory that you only read the New Testament. And there's a thing that I always tell people in martial arts, anything you don't train, you can't defend yourself against. Yeah. You don't recognize it. Yep. So therefore you're susceptible. It can happen to you. Oh, yeah. So you're talking about books you've never read. You have no comprehension or understanding of what was in it. If you
Yeah.
read those books, you'll start to see the correlation between them and the books that you're reading as well.
Yep.
And like, the more you read, the more books you go back in the books in Mesopotamia, the stuff that they wrote.
Yeah.
Like, all of this stuff is derivatives from those works and texts.
Well, yeah. Oh, wow.
You ever read the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Yeah. Like, well, so you have you're right. You have corresponding stories. But then you also have, I'll just make it quick. So I read this book on, actually it had the Epic of Gilgamesh and a few other Canaanite stories in it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the the preface or preface, yeah, the guy was writing and they said, well yeah, the Bible told us a lot of this stuff, right? And because the Bible criticizes a lot of those gods, those other stuff. So we can't believe that like this stuff happened from the Bible. But then when they got the actual text and they're like, oh well, turns out it was speaking of things, that it was actually accurate, but it was just critical of it first.
Mhm.
So the stories they do reference the stories kind of, but they're kind of like.
So
Yeah.
you've heard of the stories of Enlil and Enki,
Yeah.
and like the Mesopotamia. So you read the lost books of Enki.
I have not read the lost books of Enki, but I know of Enlil. I know the general story.
Yeah.
Because, what's commonly translated as Lucifer is a mistranslation in Latin. Like in the Hebrew, it's actually called Hillel, which, it actually the language it actually transfers back to Enlil.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there's a connection there. So like when it's talking about the city and that stuff, the god of the city and stuff. So all those gods, the different references mentioned there are references to different versions of the Enlil story.
We're listening though to Enki's perspective.
Yeah.
Enki, Ki means earth.
Yeah.
So literally, it's Enki is earth god.
Yeah.
Enlil means Lord Wind.
Yeah.
So he was the Lord of the heavens.
Which Peter makes reference to that. Was it Peter? When he talks about the god of the wind.
Mm-hmm. The vortex.
Yeah.
Literally everything starts with the vortex. Lord Wind, Enlil. So
Yeah.
we're listening to the stories from Enki's perspective of his brother,
Yeah.
which is going to be He's going to demonize Enlil. He's going
Yeah.
to say that Enlil is this, and all his temples are gone, all the statues that the Enlilites are gone, and the only thing that's left is Enki's perspective of Enlil.
Well, I mean, are you talking about referring like the Bible's
No, just
or
the books. Just all. If you read all
Most
those
of it.
those books from Mesopotamia,
Yeah,
like
it's-
if you read the lost books of Enki, it's Enki's perspective of what happened.
That's true. Yeah.
That's
okay.
his point of view.
Yeah. I mean, it makes
And
sense.
there isn't a lot of literature there isn't from Enlil's perspective at all.
No, most of it's from. I mean, you also hear from Baal too, which, like the whole Baal cycle. So like you have El, who's the high god, which eventually, Baal, through religious evolution,
Mhm.
Baal became the chief god, and then El just kind of got out there. But when you read the older texts that we have, like it's El that's like the chief god.
Mhm.
But in which we call him, in the Bible there's references to El, there's references to the bull. I always wonder why they make a bull, but it's Baal. And then also El means, so it's mighty one, but it's also a bull. Like the picture is the like strength of a bull because they're very strong.
Mhm.
So like I was like, well, why'd they make a bull? And then it's like Baal. And then when you start looking, he's like, I forget the reference in Hebrew, but he basically says that like you guys, one day you guys will call me husband, but not Baal Ali or something like that. It means husband. They both mean husband, but
Yeah.
one's in a different sense, and then
Yeah.
and God's basically saying like one day you'll stop like mixing with this false religion, and you'll follow me. You'll call me husband. I mean, in like Hosea, when he like divorces Israel and sends them out to the nations and stuff,
Mhm.
and he says like I'm sending you away, but one day, like I promise, one day I will bring you back. And then also that's where you also get the prophecy when he says, "And I'll bring still more unto me," which includes like Gentiles or us, you know.
Yeah.
But like it's interesting because like growing up, like most of what I knew was New Testament. I was often taught that Jesus taught these new things, and then I read the Old Testament. Like I became a Freemason, right? And I kind of lost my way there for a little while. Had to reset, and I just started. I started reading Torah. I went and got a Torah because I didn't realize it was the first 5 books of the Moses in the Bible. So I went and bought a separate one. Thing I was like, oh man. And then like as I read it, and I was like, all right, now I can read the Bible. And I started reading. I was like, God damn! I went and spent money for no reason. But so I read the Torah, read through the prophets, and then I was finally ready to go back through the New Testament and be like, all right, who's Jesus then? Is he God? What is he? Like, and I basically, because I had basically told God, like, all right, I got to start over because I got all this stuff here, right? And I need you to tell me, like, if you want me to believe in Jesus, because I stopped believing in Jesus, like, you got to show me that, like, you know, Yeshua is, like, your son, but also that Yeshua is, you know, God, like, he's you, right? And I'm like, But then I started learning that stuff, and now I understand, like, there's, because people say Christians made the Trinity. Christians did not make the Trinity. Jews did. Actually, Jews have stories. So there's parts in the Old Testament where like God is speaking, you know, he's speaking, but he's also speaking of himself. Like he speaks himself of the first person, and then he says, "I will allow Yehovah." You know, Yehovah will be the one, and then there's also there's so many references. There's a lot of stuff back there, but like then I realized like, oh man, and then there's actually a book called Two Powers in Heaven, and it's all about the different like Jewish groups, and it shows that like that was actually a standard belief in Judaism. You can even see it in the Talmud in not the Mishnah, but the but some of their commentaries as well in Genesis. They state specifically that the Messiah is God and the one to come will be God. Mm-hmm. Like, sorry.
No problem. But so, you ever read the book? It's called The Ohspe. Ohaspe, I believe.
Off the top of my head, I'm going to say no. But it doesn't mean that I haven't.
You'd know if you read it.
No.
It's profound. It's one of the most profound books I've ever read.
Okay.
It's profound. So in it talks about a lot of the stuff that we speculate about.
Yeah.
And one of the things it talks about is the Aisu.
That sounds familiar.
Okay.
It does.
The Aisu is one who is doesn't want anything from the world. They don't want any physical things. They just want God.
Yeah.
But they're in a physical body. And they were a people. They were like a tribe.
Yeah.
Okay? So, and in this, it talks about different prophets who came to the earth. And basically, it's like a Bible, because it even talks about stuff that's in the Bible. It's pretty insane. But when you read it, it's like reading the Bible, but from the perspective of being in space.
Gotcha.
So it talks about the earth, but from the perspective of looking at it from space.
The tribe. I can't think of what they're called now. I have a bad memory sometimes.
Faithist. So basically it's people who follow Jehovah, the Most High God, and they're called faithists, and they're people who just believe in Jehovah God. So then in this book, it talks about different prophets that came to the earth. It talks about Zarathustra, Micah, Yeshua, and there's a lot more, but I don't remember all of their names. But they were all classified as an Aisu. They were called the Aisu. And
why does it sound so like it does? Why does it sound so familiar? I read a lot of things, and like so. My way my brain works is I'll read like if I'm not studying something like right then, like I just let it goes to wherever it goes.
Yeah.
So like if it's like abortion, then I'll study a bunch on abortion, and I'll be covering that topic, and then it'll be Islam like the next week, and all that stuff goes.
Yeah.
So like it's possible that I've read
I'd be surprised if you read it, because I've never met anybody else who read this book.
I've read, well, see, the thing is, I've read so much stuff that like it's hard to keep it. Like
I stumbled upon it on YouTube.
There.
Like I was searching for and this is the thing, I was looking up something about Egypt and Osiris.
Yeah.
And then I found this video where it talked about Osiris, but it wasn't from Egypt.
Yeah, that's believable. Yeah, yeah.
It was a different Osiris.
Yeah.
And then they talk about how the Osiris of Egypt was a false god of the earth, but that wasn't the original Osiris. The original Osiris was from
serious?
the ether.
Or
He was an etheric being.
yeah.
So, and this is in the Ospie, it talks about the ether and it talks about etheric beings. And the ether is the thought space beyond the atmosphere. And then in the atmosphere are the fallen gods who rule over Earths and planets. So basically you have different heavens. So you have the heaven directly above the earth, which is the atmosphere, which is, there's all these different gods up there that claim to be God.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, you have the ether, where etheric beings live.
No, that makes actually, I don't think I've read the book, but like I have read. So I like religion. I love religion.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily like following it, but I love learning about.
Learning
like,
it, but it's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's profound.
So, like that story is so common in like most texts, because most people don't read. They don't care about, like, you know, outside, like you're not in, if you're in Islam, then it's Islam. If you're in like whatever, but like I like where this, you know, these mentions of things in the Bible or in other stuff, and it's like, where did they come from? Right. And so like I go and I look and I read. So like I read a lot of books, and that is actually fairly because even from like the standpoint of the if you go to the Sumerian text, it's kind of the same thing. Not necessarily the same thing, but like how you have like there's gods here, right, and they create us because they don't want to work anymore, pretty much, and then eventually like we rebel too. And like you have the main, because we petition the main god El, and like, but like yeah, there's a whole, but that story in general.
They more fashioned us.
Yeah.
Because we weren't created by them.
They said
they manipulated our genes.
Well, what they say is so in the Sumerian one is they basically kill another god, or they don't kill. They take another god and they use him or like maybe his blood or something in the earth to yeah.
Because you need the spark.
Yeah.
Because now we have a spark.
Yeah.
So you're familiar with the Anunnaki.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Anunnaki, they came here, created a bunch of slave workers so they didn't have to work, so they could mine the gold and send it back to their ship or their planet, because their planet needed it for the atmosphere. And then they were like, man, we're tired of working, we need a slave to keep. And they were like, let's make a slave that can repopulate themselves. And that was the story in Enlil and Enki.
Yeah.
And so then Enki was the one who created us, but gave us the spark of life so that we could reproduce and stay here. And then I believe that Enlil was against that, or that's how the story goes.
Yeah.
He was against that because you're not supposed to go to different planets and tinker with the DNA of the population because the cause and effect.
Yeah.
Because of the implications. Because now you're responsible for those beings you created, especially if they're
my problem. So those stories, like, so I hear people talk on YouTube, right? And I'm not an expert. Some are like, I read it in they're like, I've read it in the actual language and stuff, and I question it sometimes. But like, I've read it in English, so that I give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, there's probably stuff that like doesn't translate into English well, or maybe they're not translating it because they don't want to like throw a monkey wrench or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, to me, like when I hear them on that, I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I've gotten the habit of like being able to tell when someone is like, because people like to tell stories in a way that fits their thought. So like they'll often change things because when they seen it, that's what it reminded them of, right? Well, I like to tell stories in the like this is what it says. Like you make up your own mind as to what. So like when they talk about DNA and different planets and stuff, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying, like, when I read the text, like, I don't get the different planet things. Like, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, not in the sense of like these were spacemen and they had like ships and like in the sense of like we're thinking or whatever. Like,
that's just how we can, because what you're talking about is the only way that we can conceptualize it with our human minds.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because what we're talking about is so far beyond us that we have to relate it to something so we can name it.
Yeah.
We have to be able to like, well, it's just an ambiguous thing. I can't really put my finger on it. You know, that's why people who don't understand you are like intimidated, because they can't put you in a box.
Yeah.
They can't put their finger on you. You're like, I can't classify you as something.
Yeah.
So you're unknown. That's frightening.
Yeah. I mean, and then also like unknown, like, so like that was one of the things when I had to shake off, is because when I left, well, I didn't necessarily leave, like, well, Christianity kind of left me. But like when I started learning, like at first I used to be afraid to read things. Like, oh, well, this is, you know, could be heretical or whatever. Yeah. But now I read it and I'm like, oh, I need to know what it says, because if it's like, why is it heretical? I can't just take someone's word for it anymore. And like I found that actually reading stuff, like I read it, I'm like, oh, this is fake. Like this sounds like some dude was like, oh, I'm gonna make this story. Yeah. Like a lot of the Canaanite stories, a lot of the Sumerian stories, like when you read them and you're like, man, this like some of it has everything to do with just regular life shit, like regular, like, you know, like harvest and stuff, and then like the fear of things, like the story of the hunter and the daughter of I think daughter of El eventually is the one of the daughters is one that kills the hunter. You know, it's like the base story of like Tammuz, because he was a great hunter. There's like, because I got a book and it's basically like a translation of all the texts that they have. Like, but you know, like there's parts missing, so like they'll put like the ... and they'll put it in like parentheses or whatever to show that like this is what we assume would be there, you know, given like guessing. But like not girls. I'm sorry I talk too much now. But but it's just made up. Like it's about like seasons and stuff like that. Like they're pagans too, a lot of them. So like a lot of it does have to do with.
See, it's like the things that you read that are like for you, like things that benefit your life. That's from God. Like people write about themselves. They write about what they're interested. I'm interested in this, or this is my perspective, but God writes things that are revelational. God writes things that uncover things that from in your heart. Like you have a revelational experience and you feel enlightened and you have an epiphany. That's from God.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've seen some, like, the Holy Ghost wars. I call them the Holy Ghost. What you mean? So, like, people will be like, I read this and, like, you know, the Holy Ghost told me this, right? Out of the Bible. Yeah. And it'll be completely out of context. And then there's another person who's like, oh, well, the Holy Ghost told me this. And it also might be out of the context, but then like now you have two people who could both be wrong, but still think they're right, and but for them like the Holy Ghost showed it. And the only way that the way I look at things is I don't have to have a definite. So like if there's something that's ambiguous, like I just leave it ambiguous. Like it could be this, it could be that. But if there's something, like if I can get the context for something, because so often stuff in the Bible has context. It's just that we don't have it because we're not from the ancient Middle East. So like some of the sayings and stuff, like they don't even mean what their pastor is telling you they mean. Right. Because when you go back and you learn from their perspective, and you're like, oh, it's
because everyone's reading the Bible for a prescription because they're selfish. Yeah. They're not reading it as a historical text. Yeah. They're just reading it like, oh, I need answers, so I'm going to take this verse, even though verses weren't created till way after the Bible. Yeah. And I'm going to use this for my life. And then when it doesn't work, I'm going to blame God.
And even the way that it's separate, like the verses, there's another thing, like your English translation, depending on where they separate the text, especially like in Genesis, can change the narrative completely because there was no separation. So like it could, like some of the parts that are supposed to be a continuous story, you think it's a separate chapter because they've made it two different chapters. Like does God reveal things to us? Yes. Like I wholeheartedly believe that, like, if we all learn, like, and there's personal stuff for us to be revealed, right? But when it comes to like text or like the Bible and stuff, like
two people can read the same text and have two different interpretations, and both of them can be right.
They could be,
because it's based on their perspective, which is their point of view.
But your perspective doesn't mean that that's what God meant. Like
no, but it's basically like this.
I'm not arguing. Sorry.
No, it's like this. It's like if I open the door a little bit, I can only see through the crack because that's my point of view or my point of reference or my perspective.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean everything else behind the door ain't there.
Yeah.
Just because I can't see it.
Yeah.
I can just only see this little bit of truth because that's how much that's my point of view. But as the door continues to open, more and more is revealed.
Yeah.
So even when you read the word, that's how it is for you. You're just reading it, and it just cracks the door open for you just a little bit.
Yeah,
and you can see a little bit of truth in there. You may not be able to get it all, but you are on your way.
Yeah, but so like another thing is here's a good example. Mm-hmm. Like who killed Jesus, the Romans or the Jews? Some people say the Jews. People say the Romans. Right. But the fact of the matter is both. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are you arguing about something in the text? It doesn't really matter. Because the Christians are like, oh, the Jews killed Jesus. Like, well, so did the Romans. So, like, the Jews connived, but they couldn't kill him themselves, right? So they had to get the Romans to do it. And even though the Romans had every opportunity to be like, no, we're not going to. You know, he seems like he doesn't seem to be what you tell me. And then even Pontius Pilate at one point says that, like, you know,
they were salty about what they did.
Yeah.
And Judas wasn't the only one that killed himself after that.
Yeah, or probably not.
That's just one story.
Yeah.
Because how could you look at the man on the cross, go through all that, know who he is, and then after you tell him to curse his father, he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, and dies.
Yeah.
And looks you in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all had problems after that day.
And then destroy your temple.
Yeah. They all had problems after that day. Yeah. It was bad for everybody that watched it.
Yeah. I mean, the Jewish leadership, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you're telling, because, like, you're
then
telling
Judas
me.
Gets gold and goes and buys a rope. He gets his gold and gets paid. And they just told you the one story. Yeah. And he looks at his gold and goes and gets a rope.
Yeah.
And wraps it around. It's worth nothing to him.
Yeah.
He's like, just give me I just need to die. I can't take this, what I did.
Yeah. Which I would have been like,
man,
at that point, I'm like, oh, well, it's over, so.
Bro, like you know. After you do that, bro, like, I just, like, that's just crazy, bro. Like, to think about the people who were involved in that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that and that's what's funny, is when you read the Talmud and you read those things, and they say that the Messiah will be God, you know, all these things, what to look for. Like, they knew the Torah, the prophets, they told the time, like, hey, you know, there's going to be a time of visitation, right? Mm-hmm. And then, so, like, Jesus comes, he's doing all those things. Like, I almost guarantee that, like, well, Nicodemus comes in John chapter 3 that we're about to read next time. And he says, like, we know that you're sent, you know, you're sent from God.
You're the one.
Yeah. You know, I'm like, so they can read the signs.
Yes.
And then, but they're literally going against God, which is, you know, but then that's kind of the Pharisaical way. Like,
so Christ means anointed one.
Yeah.
That's what Christ means. Anointed one. To be anointed means to be saturated. Yeah. Saturated. Okay, so a sponge is saturated with water. It's a sponge, which is the body, right?
Yeah.
But then it's filled up with the water, which is the spirit.
Yeah.
That was the definition of who Jesus was. He was a sponge that was saturated with the Spirit of God. Yeah. So that's why when he was like, it was like, God is full. My body is full of God.
Yeah. But I mean, he was. I mean, because you look.
But he was in a body.
Yeah.
So his body was saturated.
Yeah.
With the Spirit of God.
Because the rider on the cloud. So that's one of the things. The dual. Mm-hmm. Where the rider on the, because the terminology there. So like they're actually taking from the Baal cycle, mm-hmm. and using the terminology of the chief, like the main god, the most powerful. The storm rider, the one that rides on the cloud, and they're attributing it to someone who sits at the right hand of God. So, like, it's two God, like the God's sitting there, and you know, but Jews they don't believe in multiple gods; they only believe in one God. and then you see these in the writings of these I don't know, the rabbis, or maybe like, I mean, just their writings, because the Talmud is just like it's not one like book where you read from one. It's arguments of different topics and things like that. It's a mix of things, right? So like the name Yeshua itself means, so like you miss it in the Greek and you miss it in the English, but like the angel tells Mary, like, you will name him Yeshua, for he will Yoshia his people. It's like a poetry. It means you'll name him Yeshua, and Yeshua means Jehovah saves. So it's the contraction of the name Yehoshua, and then they shorten it to Yeshua, but the meaning of it is Jehovah saves. And then Yoshia means, because he will Yoshia his people, save his people. So like there's things that you miss, and we know, I mean, I can't, there's a good evidence for, like, the other Gospels. I mean, we know Matthew was written in Hebrew originally.
Yeah.
Even the guy that translated it from Latin, he said that. He said he talks about the community he got the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew from, right? But then we also see that in the other books there's Hebrews, which means that it was most like evidence that it was most likely written in Hebrew, because there are things that rhyme and go and only make sense in Hebrew when you translate it. And they've done that project where they've taken the Greek and tried to retranslate it back into to Hebrew to see if it makes more sense, because there's some passages that in the Greek it just doesn't make sense. Like, so like when you see it's in like the Hebrew and stuff, like, and then so this one guy, he studies the Hebrew Gospel Matthews, and he had a chance to go through a junk box at the Vatican, which is basically what they do is, like, if they're old books. So like sometimes when you're going through a manuscript, it falls out of a book, and they don't know where it is, so they just throw them in these boxes. So he was able to get one of those boxes and go through it, and he found a Hebrew version of, I think, John, and then of Luke, and I can't remember if it was either John, or it was either in the John one or the Luke one, but they found that in that gospel the name of God was there, Yehovah. So with full vowing, like that's it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't prove that it was written in Hebrew, but if there's other versions out there, and the reason, so he goes to libraries and stuff, and he'll be the only person it's been there for years. He's the only person that checked it out, because Christians don't have a dog in the fight to look for Hebrew manuscripts, and Jews certainly don't want to find, like, Hebrew. They don't care about that. So like there's like he tells the story of one time he went and checked it out, and the librarian was like, hey, like, let me know what's in it, because no one's ever checked it out. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like, oh, so he goes through and looks, and he basically compares these Hebrew Gospels of Matthew, because the first one was like Shem Tov's Hebrew Gospel, and that was basically Hebrew Gospel from the Inquisition. So like when the Spanish were trying to make Jews convert, right? So one of the Jews, he's like, well, I better prepare for this. So they actually had a manuscript of the Hebrew, and that's what he studied, and then that's how he argued, which didn't really matter, because if you win, you're messed. You can forget it. If you lose, like you can forget it. Like, you gotta convert either. Like, it's a lose-lose either way. But yeah, that's what started it, and then he went through and found all these other manuscripts, and then he compares them and stuff. But yeah, like, the more information I gather, I used to doubt whether Jesus was God or not, or if he was just the Messiah, like it was a separate thing. But like now I don't doubt it. Like, it's like it all makes sense. And the more I had to understand the Old Testament to be able to see the rep, because people are like, Jesus never claimed to be God. Like, yes, he did. He actually did. Like, you just have to know Scripture. If you don't know Scripture, then it just looks like he's saying something random, and the Pharisees get angry. But the quotes that he's making are to the parts where it describes, like the one that sits at the right hand of God, the ball. Like, so he's claiming to be God. That's why they're so angry, and they know their Talmud, like the leaders do. Like, Judaism is one of those religions, just like Christianity and all of them, where like the heads of the religion often know more than everyone else, even some of the teachers. So, because they have like Isaiah 53. they don't allow people to read Isaiah 53. They'll say, "Oh, well, you don't read that. Like, if you're gonna study that, have a rabbi interpret it for you."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, but now that I've read that stuff and I look at the New Testament, like I say 99% of what Jesus said is not new. Like you could actually go back and see what he was talking about, and it's just that people don't know. So like, to them, like Jesus is this revolutionary, but when actually he was more of a conservative. Not like in political terms, but like, he was conserving the Torah. He was teaching Torah, the very Torah that Christians say that is done.
Discipline.
Yeah, or
he
no.
was teaching pathway.
Yeah. He says, if you read, and maybe next time you read, like, look how many times he says, keep my commandments, do the will of the Father. And then to know the will of the Father, you have to know the Torah, because then they use the example of Abraham. He says, Abraham kept my statutes, my commandments, and he did what I said. So like that's why it was attributed to faith towards him, because he believed. And to believe is not just to say like, I believe in Christ. Jesus died on the cross.
Mm-hmm. So when Jesus said, "Do the will of the Father," and he said, "My Father," who was he referring to?
Jehovah. Yeah.
Right. So Jehovah is the Most High God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I'm not gonna. So like the thing is, I don't have to like. So to me, like they can. I don't understand that relationship between that. But I can tell you that like whether it's the Word of God when it talks about the beginning, like at the angel of Yehovah, it was in the bush, and then Yehovah was in the bush,
mm-hmm.
or you have these different things where they like it's speaking to two entities that are the same but different, and often they even use it. Like I said, there's parts in the Old Testament where one is speaking about the other but using the same name for each. So I can't say that one's less and one's higher.
So in creation, so one thing that God told us not to do is worship anything in creation.
Yeah.
That's a false god. That's idolatry.
Yeah.
To worship anything that, if I didn't touch it, it's not the Most High God. It's not infinite.
Oh yeah. That's different with Jesus. So I don't do the carving. I don't do the cross. I think that's idolatry.
Yeah, like all of the statues and like things. That's all idolatry.
Yeah, but so
even worshiping your wife, that's idolatry.
So in the Old Testament, there's different passages where it actually attributes to the Messiah the same attributes as God, mm-hmm. and that's why you're allowed to worship. So even the Pharisees would be like, they'd be like, oh, that's idolatry. Or, you're claiming to be this, but he could do that because he was God. And then we see when Joshua saw the angel and he bowed down. The angel didn't say, no, don't worship me, because it was the angel of God. It's Jehovah. Because it says no one can stand before Most High, Jehovah, but what it seems like from the text is that the angel, or whether it's Jesus, that is a manifestation of God that we can actually approach, we can see, it talks about how Abraham, remember before Sodom and Gomorrah, God visits, they eat, mm-hmm. he has the angels with him, right? And then most of the time when God is appearing to people, it is actually either the angel of Yehovah or the Word of God, or that same being, but it differentiates it from other angels, because other angels say, hey, no, you don't worship me, I'm not the Most High. So there's these different, the Bible differentiates, and then the Messiah and that angel, that certain angel, they have the same, they're allowed to be worshipped. They're allowed to claim the things that only the Most High says he would. Even in the Old Testament, it says, I will save you. There is no other Savior besides me. Right? So, when it comes to Jesus, I don't have, the whole cross thing with the Jesus on it, and, I don't do that thing. But, it says that he's the intermediate between us. So, when I pray, sometimes because I believe he's Jehovah. So, and then even he prayed to the Father. So, he said, the example he gave us, which is kind of funny that
he said, "Do as I do, which is follow me."
Yeah, and then he ends it with pray to the Father. So
yes, this it's so rudimentary and simple to me, because Jesus said, "Follow me," which means do as I do. I'm going to show you a demonstration, even until my death.
Yeah,
I will not deny my Father. And I will pray for you. I will bless you when you curse me. All you got to do is just follow the example, and he showed you how to do everything.
Yeah. But then he destroyed the temple. Well, he told him the judgment, because the temple was destroyed. Because remember, he says, Israel, how I long to gather you under my wing, or as a chick or a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. Yes. So the stuff that it talks about, he at that part he was the I'm sacrificing myself. Mm-hmm. The next part is I'm coming back to kick butt. He talks about he's going to tread the winepress. When the nations surround Israel, it's going to be him that saves Israel. He says there will be no other nations to help. Beside
And when he says when he returns, he's going to come back like a lion. But the thing is, it's like Jesus was like a secret agent, because he came here, you did not know who you were talking to, not at all, not even to begin with. He was so humble and meek, and he was a lamb.
Yeah.
And you could never imagine the power that he had, the power that he wielded, because he would never do it to you.
Yeah.
He would never do that to you.
Yeah.
He just let everybody do everything, and he just allowed you, because he's not going to force himself on you, even though he's all powerful and can do whatever.
Yeah.
So when he comes, but the thing is that he's like, I'm going to do it like this, and I'm going to see what you do. And they put him on a cross.
Yeah. Well,
and hung him.
Well, they knew that. That's. Well,
you see what I'm saying? So now you deserve it.
Yeah.
So now when I return, as a lion, you deserve everything I'm bringing.
Yep.
You deserve everything that comes back, because I gave you the chance. I came as a lamb.
Yeah.
I sacrificed. I did everything, and look what you did.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
When I come back, it's not gonna be the same.
the parable of the wine, they have the wine vineyard where the people, he rents it out to them, and then the people he sends a servant and they beat up the servant because asking the payment or whatever, and then they send the servant back, and then I think they send another one, they beat him up, and then I think they send the son. He sends his son, and then they kill the son. Mm-hmm. So then if I remember this, but eventually the moral of the story is when that happens, they come back and they kill the people who so he gave you all these chances, that's
you had your chance.
Yeah. Which Jews, most Jews are looking for two messiahs. They look for the suffering servant, the lamb, and then they look for the king, the boss, the
one who returns with authority.
Yeah.
The author.
Yeah. And so we believe that Messiah was both. But they're always looking for it. But they're getting ready to build the third temple. I'm like, oh, snap. It's about to go down. No wonder they're about to kick Hamas out. They're about to take Gaza, and they're going to, secure the Temple Mount. And they're going to build that third temple. And then that's going to cause, the amount of, strife. We haven't seen anything yet. Ukraine is nothing. This little war is nothing. When they take the Dome of the Rock, or if they plan on taking the Dome of the Rock, even if they don't, if they build the temple in Jerusalem, people don't understand what that means to the Jews and how that's going to change the entire. They're going to go from, it's like if it's kind of like if Mecca had ever been destroyed, and they still had the little box, and then they waited. And it was another person occupying. They were saying, "Oh, you can't come on the Temple Mount and pray," or here. And then eventually they get all the stuff they need. If they say there's stuff to preparation, because that's what they did. They built all the different tools. They have new tools, and then now they're claiming they have the Ark now, so that's why they're getting ready to build this temple. And when they build, oh my God, they're gonna go from lambs to fucking That's just but people don't understand how it's gonna change the attitudes, because even then Jews here, they have to respect Israel, because now that there's a temple, they have a way to sacrifice. They have to now acknowledge Jerusalem. They have to travel back to Jerusalem to do their sacrifices and stuff. So it changes the power dynamic, and it's gonna tear the world heart.
Wow.
Like, yeah, because I remember people were like, oh, there's no third temple. It's just going to be like, God was talking about the temple in your heart, and it's just a metaphor. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But like, at the same time, I read like Ezekiel and stuff, and I'm like, kind of sounds like, reading through the Old Testament, like, kind of sounds like there's going to be a new temple. But like, yeah. So, but now they're looking at building it, and I'm like, oh well, it's like,
Yeah.
half you're wrong, half you're right. But I didn't have a stake. I was like, if it's just, it's just a temple in my heart, like, that's cool. If it's an actual temple, then like, I'll know the sign of the times. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it talks about the abomination of desolations standing in the temple.
Yeah.
But, so,
Yeah.
I know, I've been rambling.
Now we're in Revelations. We're in the time of Revelation, so it's not going to be too much longer. Like, everything is happening, everything's being uncovered, the truth, the lies are being overturned, and and like the truth is being revealed. And it's just like, you can't even hide the things that have happened in our government and in our society and the entertainment industry and all. Like, it's all being unraveled.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like,
Diddy.
I mean, like, what else is there to happen? You know what I'm saying? After 2020, man, like, that was the beginning, the year of clear vision.
Yeah.
The year of revelation, we start to see things. And if you didn't take heed in 2020 and notice, like, you're just lost.
Yeah.
If you didn't understand, like, basically,
Oh, that's something else.
if you didn't understand, like, it's just like, if you didn't get it then, man, like, you ain't gonna get it.
Like the whole, I know about the Satan stuff. Like the whole humiliation rituals, the whole homosexual thing. Like, I remember people like, oh, you really think that's happening? I'm like, oh.
Yes, it's happening.
Yeah, like that's
Crazy.
been. Like, you only have to.
The human trafficking.
Yeah, like that part, really.
And then the fact that people don't understand who's doing it.
I mean,
And can't conceive, and they're like you're fans of them.
Yeah.
You're fans of the people who do the human trafficking. You like them. You like watch their stuff, and you like follow them, and you like them.
Yeah, like R. Kelly when he was with the little girls and they're like defending him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, like that doesn't make any sense.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's cringy, almost like it's like y'all defend R. Kelly because you like his music. That's how weak-minded you are.
That just goes to show how, we've been trained to follow stars,
False
and stuff.
gods.
Yeah.
They're all false gods.
And they act like it too. They eventually they get to a point where they all have that song of I'm a god or whatever.
Yeah. Drake says it. He admits to being a Satanist in his songs verbally. Yeah. He says, "I'm the sixth god." He's like, I don't know. There was an interview we had where he's like, I don't know where this comes from, but I get this power, this voice that helps me write my music.
Yeah.
And then but he doesn't allude to what it is until you listen to his music, where he talks about how he's a Satanist, he's a sixth god, he does all these evil things, the devil's in play. He says those words specifically.
Yeah.
And it's like he's not hiding nothing.
No, Jay-Z.
You're just an idiot. If you don't see it, you just don't pay attention.
Yeah.
But they're not supposed to hide it, because the thing is that the devil made a deal with God that he could make us fall. So the deal is that we were just as evil as he is, and that he could prove it to us. And that's why he admits everything, and then he's like, choose. And then we're supposed to be choosing God, but instead we give it to our flesh, and we choose the devil.
Yeah.
And then we're just proving him right.
Which, are you talking about the book of Job? When he bets God, basically, when Job, he's like, I'll take all this stuff away from him. He only likes you because you give this stuff. Job actually passed. Well, kind of. He did. He passed that test. He never, forbade God. Mm-hmm. But eventually, God was like, "Hey, hold on. I gotta have a talk.
Grab your loins. Grab your loins."
But we ain't passing.
Yeah.
As a society, we're not passing.
No.
Literally, they tell you that they worship the devil, and you follow these people. Yeah. You're making a decision. God doesn't force himself upon you. He gave you free will to choose.
Yeah.
And these people are telling you, we're devils.
Yeah.
Follow us.
And
make a show.
Yeah. And you don't. The one of the biggest forms of evil is not saying anything. Yeah. It's allowing stuff to happen and being like, well, it's not my life. Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't affect me, but it affects my wife, it affects my kids,
exactly,
my cousins, my sisters, but it's not me.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And that happened in politics, like, because remember, like, and that goes back to the thing, like, you don't talk about politics or religion, but it came to a point where, like, Christians were like, oh, you know, we're spiritual, like, that's, you know, but, like, what the founders did, because even like, George Washington in his last address said that, you know, make sure you guard the Christian morals you have, like, otherwise this whole experiment will fall apart. He doesn't say it in those words. He says it in, I'm paraphrasing, but basically in those words in a, like, you know, a dead white man's voice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But you know what I mean? Like, and then the founders always, even Thomas Jefferson was like, oh, hey, don't listen, like, don't divide among parties. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that. You're all Americans.
Yeah.
And like, go ahead.
No, I have a good quote. It's from a movie called Kingdom of Heaven.
Okay.
And it's been stuck with me all day yesterday. I listened to the audible of the quote for the entire workout that I had yesterday.
So weird.
And it says, no, but words are powerful, and I resonate with words.
I'm giving you a hard time.
No,
You
you're
don't have to
good.
explain.
You're good. People that are like, why do you have that on repeat? I'm like, man, because I just can't let go of it.
Yeah.
And the quote was, a king may move a man, a father may claim a son, but remember that even when those who move you be kings or men of power, your soul is in your keeping alone. When you stand before God, you cannot say, but I was told by others to do thus, or that virtue was not convenient at the time. This will not suffice. And the reason I brought that up is going back to the point that we had of nobody's saying anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out there and pillage buildings, right, the way other religions do. You don't have to go kill people because they disrespect God.
Yeah.
But you do have the obligation to speak the truth and try to change. Even if you can't change it, try to change the way things are ran, but not just for yourself. Like, how do you not care about your kids' kids?
Yeah.
How do you not care about your great grandkids?
Yeah.
You know, and men don't, and it all starts with God, but it all starts with men that, like, women can't change generations. They can't. They just can't. They're not enforcers. They don't have the ability to enforce change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure they can speak about things and they can get stuff rolling.
Well, they can vote now.
They can't enforce it.
Yeah.
And so the way we can attack this is gathering men, teaching them the truth, and then the ones who want to change will change society.
Yeah.
Because it all starts with, like, it starts with your kids, it starts with your brothers, in a sense of, like, people you know. Oh, well, you can't change this, you can't change that, the world's evil.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it starts with your kids. In your household, if you change your household, then your kids change their household, and then your kids' kids change their households, and then they have friends,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
All it
Stuff
takes
with
is
your
one
kids.
person. It takes one person, and the moment you make that switch in your life, to go back to that quote, like, virtue has to be convenient at all times.
Yeah.
You can't just be virtuous when you want to be and be like, well, today I'm not going to tell the truth because it's going to make my friend hate me.
Forget them kids.
You know what I mean, though?
Yeah. Like,
And so I think a good ending point is, and we definitely need a part 2, but a good ending point needs to be that Jesus wasn't, it's like what you guys said, he was a lion. He wasn't just a lamb. Everyone
He
always
was
said,
undercover. He was posing as a lamb.
and everyone, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, everyone always assumes Jesus was only kind. You don't even know. Like, he was beyond kind. His strength was you can't gauge his strength because you can't comprehend. You can't comprehend that if he wanted to, you were dead. You were like, you didn't
Yeah.
exist if he didn't want you to.
Yeah, but
And so that's where the
Yeah,
strength
sorry.
comes. No, you're good. That's where the strength comes from, is the ability to be like, you know, you upset me or you disrespect me, and I'm jealous, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, my experience is there's nice people and there's kind people. And people say, like, what's the difference? Like kind people will be like, you break down like, all right, yeah, I'll change this tire, whatever, da, da. But a kind person, if as soon as you like cross that line, they're like, hold on, like, no, I'm helping you do this, and like now you're just taking advantage of me, like, you know, like, I'm still change this tire real quick, but then after that, like, you can go on your way, like, you know, and then the next time, you know what I mean, like kind people have boundaries. Jesus had boundaries, so anytime like you see like one of the Pharisees like say something or someone say something like that had to do with him and his mission or whatever, he'd be like, hey, hold on, stop.
That's called assertiveness.
I mean, the biggest example is when he flipped the table and overturned that temple. That's like people like nobody brings that back to Jesus. They always just read it and forget about it, and they always say, no, we need to let the fire happen. We need to let everything burn. We need to like not say anything because we're forgiving. And we do need to forgive, and we do need to be kind, but sometimes we got to overturn the temple.
We'll seek justice.
You know what I mean? As an analogy. Like sometimes we have to step in and be like, all right, well, this isn't happening anymore, and I don't care if you guys care about it, but it's not happening anymore.
The Bible says to seek justice and righteousness, and then so like,
combat evil.
Yeah, and to ignore evil is to be evil, like to not.
That's why you must be assertive.
Yeah, like you have to be.
It can't be convenient.
Yeah.
When it. Even when
you're going to make people
against
uncomfortable, and people are going to like you, and and it don't matter.
Yeah,
because it's literally what you got. It doesn't matter. You got to be confrontational.
Yep, and because people like, anytime you tell someone the truth, they don't like. That's my experience. It don't even have to it don't have to be like. It could literally be like a fact, like something that is like you don't have to. It's not arguable. It's something like it has nothing to do with religion or anything. It's just something like factual, like like you know. That's that's a tire, and they're like, oh no, it's a rubber hula hoop. I'm like, no, like, oh, all right, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I got to the point where like, all right, but I told you, like we were talking about earlier, I told you, but you can do whatever you want with that information. So,
and just so people understand, when I say confrontational, because I say this a lot, but I'm very into etymology, which is the meaning of words. It's like I'm just simply saying to confront. You have to confront things. You can't run away.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, oh, you got to be assertive, confront the things that need to be confronted.
Yeah.
And stand and take a stand.
Yeah.
Don't just stand for something, but also stand against.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stand against because you can't be like, oh, I'm all for kindness, and then not have the opposite. Like, okay, well, I can't be kind anymore
Jesus
because you crossed the line. You crossed the line, so now I can't be kind. Now I have to be a lion.
Yeah. Jesus said, "Be salt and light." He said to occupy. Like, we're not just supposed to be like. Like we're supposed to preserve, like that's why he makes the reference to salt. Like people always talk about like, oh well, you know when he says throw it out and be trampled, but in the Jewish culture, like salt is a preservative; it doesn't go bad. So like when Jesus is talking about like be salt and light, he's talking about preserve. He's like don't let evil, and like he says, I know he says like don't there's in the New Testament it says something like. Don't resist evil or whatever, or don't return evil for evil, or basically what he's saying. But people take that and they're like, oh, you can't push back. But when you read the Torah and all that stuff, it says don't stand for evil. Like always push back against evil. Always stick up for the widow. Always stick up for the orphan. Like always see justice. Do not give out corrupt judgments. Don't be partial. Like when you have all that from the New Testament and the Old Testament in context. Like you have a better vision of how you are supposed to be as a follower of God.
And when it says don't return evil for evil, though, like you're not being evil.
You're
being assertive.
Yeah.
You're standing your ground. You're setting the boundaries, and you're doing it for a reason because it has to be done. It has to be done for that person that's doing what they're doing. It has to be done for the people who are onlooking, the demonstration that they need to understand that that's not what you do. Yeah. Like, do you know the implications of just letting it go on?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the evil.
And it's all within objective moral truth. And you can't not have God in your life and then say that murder is wrong.
Yeah.
Why? What? How? Like, you don't believe in God and you don't believe in the Bible, but you're mad that God lets babies die, but you don't believe in the Bible's morals. It's like, if we're just accidents of biology, then what's right and wrong? It's just all opinion.
You're mad that God lets babies die, but then like when you get pregnant and like, oh, I still want to go to college, so then you kill it, and it's like, make that make sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how can you be angry that babies die, but then you're the one that murdered them? Like, then you go out and you murder a baby. And then, like...
I mean, if babies didn't die, we wouldn't know how horrific it is.
Yeah.
We living in a world with experiences. And while we're here, we're going to experience it.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Oh, yeah. But, like you said, like, we have to stand up to get... Like, my mom could have easily just aborted me. Because, like, my father was, shot and killed. And then, she had a choice to make. But instead, she gave me up for adoption. It gave me a whole nother life. Like, so, like, a lot of people like, oh, well, pro-choice, the woman's, I don't care about that. Like, I care about the child's voice. And I actually believe, like, with the technology we have now, like, you can, at a certain point, you can remove the baby from the woman's womb, raise it in an artificial womb, but then you can also have it adopted before it ever gets fully born. Like, there's tons of people with adoption. And I know, like, sometimes like, people talk about, like, how because they do traffic out of the system, right? IVF. But we have technology now where we can actually, like, we could do a better job at, like, if we stop, like, if we cut out a lot of the fat, we could actually focus on doing the thing, like checking people out and getting babies into good homes. And like follow-ups and stuff like that. Like that is something we could do. But that's what drives me nuts is we have the technology, the power, and the knowledge to make a much better world. But like the people at the top who are controlling everything are playing God, and they, for some reason, they feel like this is a better
sacrifice
outcome.
Because that's it. Basically, they have us because the whole abortion thing is just all about blood sacrifice.
Yeah.
So it's like they're just continuing the same rituals, and they're classifying it as different things to make us rationalize.
They throw the fetuses into a furnace.
Yeah. To make us rationalize with their ideology. So they're like, oh no, it's just this. So then when we watch horror movies, oh, it's just horror, but really it's demonic.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's just no, it's horror.
Which horror movies are funny if you look at it. Like scary things. If you look at scary things, like in the moment, like it might be scary, right? Like if you're, it's not like if there's a ghost in your house or something and it's like that's not funny. But like, when like it's a horror movie and there's like, something like you're like, oh, the Joe Sound is like, oh, that's the weakest thing I've ever seen.
Well, it's like you were just like, horror movie's funny, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, if a ghost is in your house, it's not funny. All I could think about was like, oh, you said it was funny. Right?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not funny when it's in your house. It might be funny when
it's on screen. That's funny.
Yeah.
But not here.
And then at that,
if there's any ghosts around, I'm not saying come over here.
Like in the moment, I'd be like, oh, that sucks. And then after I got out of the house, like, remember that time when that door opened?
And that ghost is still there. He's like, all right.
That means, and that whole time, like before that first time when it showed itself, that means he was watching me on TikTok shaking my ass.
The whole time. The whole time.
Oh, shit.
Been watching you.
No wonder you got angry.
I saw you in that bathroom. That was a long bathroom break. Oh, man.
That ghost would have stories to tell. Like this dude. I'm pretty sure he's a certified.
He thinks the humans think that we're funny, but we're looking at them like, man.
Oh, man.
No, but just to like, no, you're good. The reason that we're not making progress is because we're going about it wrong, like society in terms of changing. In terms of changing like society into, I'll just use Christian as a word, but in terms of changing society into a Christian society again, is because we're doing it individually instead of as a community. Men in particular, need to attack their churches in the terms of attack the evil that are inside their churches, their local churches. Bring those men in those churches who are already there listening to God, whether they're actually absorbing it or not. Change those men, change your local churches, and then use those churches to band up and attack evil within society instead of trying to do it alone. Because when you try to do it alone is when you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. But I mean, it takes a lot of effort to gather. like the way that they have it so separated and isolated now that it's hard. Like it's hard to organize men.
And it does take a lot of effort by yourself, and then even with other people, it still takes effort. But that effort gets divided.
Yeah, well, you have to. Sorry, I'm just saying that like I've been doing this where I try to organize people like, like cause I like I'm one of the people. Not only do I just watch people, I also realize people's talents and stuff like that. So then I'm like, oh well, like here's something I need help with this. So like if I had this person and this person, like I could solve these issues that much faster without me, like cause I don't know anything. So then I have to start from square one, go through everything and learn it. You know what I mean? Like editing. When I first started this, I was trying to learn the camera, trying to learn the computer, or the software, trying the editing software, all that stuff, trying to do all that stuff. And I'm like, So, but now I know a little bit. I'm still not that. I did enough. I learned enough to get started. But had I actually thought about it and been like, I need to find someone who actually does this stuff. You know what I mean? And then not only could I do this, I could the amount of stuff that I want to do that would be it's just retarded. But it's like literally some of it is like I'll tell you after we get off of here.
I mean, it's difficult. But I mean, you've made progress.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I'm here.
Yeah, it took
right. We have people coming in here.
Yeah.
That are here willing to help.
It took like 10 years, bro.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But they have to be equally yoked. Like you guys have to have the same objective goal.
Yeah.
You guys can't be in here like, oh, I'm just gonna help him out because he's a friend. No, I'm not helping you because you're my friend. Yeah. I'm helping you because we share the same truth, and my goal is to expose the truth to others, and it's just ironic that you're my friend.
Yeah, see, I understand that, but when I said I see, sometimes it takes years before they move into that position where they're on that same because I was telling years ago I was telling people hey this is what they're doing, if we don't stop it soon, this is what's gonna happen, right? But now it's happening, and then people are seeing it happen, and now they're like, oh well, not you, because I didn't know you before, but now they're like, oh, I'll help you now. You know what I mean? Because I had to wait for them to see what I was seeing, and you have to wait for things to often to affect people before they'll step in and be like, oh, okay, now I'm ready to, I don't know what else to do, but you said something to me a while back, you want to do that still? Yeah. But, it takes time, and I don't have that charismatic, some people are born leaders. Everything I had to do, I had to learn, because like I said, I'm not a very friendly person in the sense of I like to be alone. I push myself to be out here. This isn't what I would normally be doing. I just want, honestly, my ideal life is a plot of land with a gun range and tons of ammunition and lots of guns. I could shoot all day, take a nap, whatever, go to work, that'd be fine. But I know that's, even if I got that, right, it only lasts for so long, because once the nation falls, so there's nothing, I have an obligation to my kids and everything, so I have to do this.
But it's also an obligation to the truth. It's beyond, even there are some times where I'm I don't really want to involve myself, because once I step into it, I can't come back out.
Yeah.
In a sense of the world of changing society.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have social media. I haven't had it for 3 or 4 years, because I don't want to be known, right? Yeah. But I know that if I take the path of exposing the truth, I have to be known. Otherwise, I can't expose the truth, right?
Yeah.
Or expose the lies, I should say. It's an obligation beyond my wife, beyond my future kids, beyond you guys. It's an obligation to the truth, and I'm not saying truth isn't just the New Testament or the Old Testament or God. I'm saying the truth is in what's righteous.
Yeah.
Regardless of who, I could start this journey, and if my wife didn't agree, you have to have the ability to say, who cares?
Yeah.
You have to pursue the truth, and that's why you have to find people to do it with you who have the same objective.
Yeah.
Foresight, I guess I could say.
For me, it was never the truth was there. I had to look, and I had options. So there was so I'm one of the people that I can I can read things, and if I wanted to, like I could have went along, like I could have put myself in a position to make money and be in a decent cushy position for the ride it out on the downfall of America and make tons of money. Like I could have done that, but instead I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like I can't do that. Like I can't. I look at other people's kids and stuff. I look at like I can't let these people like be destroyed. Like you know what I mean? Like Social Security is one of the things. Like I'm like, how did the adults allow this scheme to go on for so long? And even now they're talking about sacrificing. So they're like, well, their solution is like we'll guarantee yours, but we'll have to cut your kids till 70. Like first off, like you need to get rid of it. Find another thing to establish. You should be establishing your kid's future,
it's
not draining it.
It's going back to what I mentioned is the parents don't have an objective truth. They're selfish. Yeah. They don't have a reason.
Christians.
They don't have. That doesn't matter what they call themselves. They don't have the same yoke. They're not in the same boat.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
And that's exactly why the cycle is never going to end until we start with the kids.
Yeah, and I'm not blaming Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying like
I'm
for the majority of America, like there's been Christians, and then there was Christian slaveholders. There was like. And then up through the 60s, like where like like a lot of white people were racist, but they would go and sit in church. You know what I mean? And it's like, like for somewhere because Christianity without Torah is useless, and that's pretty much what a lot of Christianity is. It's like believe in Jesus Christ, your sins are forgiven, and then like if you want to eat pork, I don't care about pork, but you know what I mean. Like basically, if you want to do this other stuff, do it. Come here on Sunday, forgive, and then you're good. And then you even see OnlyFans. Like we see the culture that was created then pushed back to us, and we're seeing the fruits of that culture to where Christianity has nothing to stand on. Like what I'm saying, modern like Christian has nothing to stand on because it's been fluff for so long that like where do you? So again, like how do you tell them like you need to like don't cheat on your husband? But it's like for so long we've pretty much told people that the law was nailed to the cross, right? That's the old covenant. Don't read that old book. Read the new book. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then Jesus will just forgive anything, right? Even though
he said that he wasn't going to come to change the way things were. He's just coming to establish what was there.
Yeah.
So
he came to fulfill. Mm-hmm. He lived it out. Like in the Hebrew, it basically the Hebrew word for that, I don't remember the name of the Hebrew word, but I've seen a study on it. Basically, what it is that it means to fulfill in a way like he lived out the Torah. So like that's the example. And then if you read all of the apostles, or like Peter, James, Paul even, they say, look at Jesus. He's the example. Be like Christ. And so and that's always why I've been wondering, like if Jesus lived the Torah out, right, then why is it that we teach like everyone that like a lot of the Torah is I'm not talking about like sacrifices and stuff I'm talking about like just the basic stuff of how we treat each other. You know what I mean? Like, because you can't say like the law's nailed to the cross, but then say like do not steal still applies. It's all of it. And if Jesus was the Word, he was the Torah. Like he didn't steal from nobody. Like show me a passage where he ate pork or any of that. I'm not saying that whether you eat pork or not. Like that's up to you. Like that's. But I'm saying, like, when I look at it and the things that they often discredit, they say, oh, you don't have to do that because Jesus never said it. He didn't have to say it because he lived it. He walked it out. You know what I mean? And
they demonstrated it.
He came as a sword.
And then he said, follow me.
Came as a sword.
It's very simple. Yeah. He created a demonstration, and he said, do as I do.
Yep. Keep the feast. Like, the feasts aren't hard to keep. Like, and actually, if you kept the feast, you'd be partying for most of the year. Like, there's I think it's 7 or 6 or 7 of them. I think there's 7 of them. Or it's a lot. Like especially like right now, I just got Passover, and then you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Sweating. Feast of Unleavened Bread. Oh my gosh, I don't remember them all. But there's a lot. Like and they're like there's the spring feast, which are like stacked up. And then you have the fall feast. Like there's a lot of partying, and like God likes to party. Like I don't know.
He likes the whole like celebration. I mean. Almost all the Psalms.
Yeah.
A lot. I'm gonna say almost all. A lot of them, because I haven't read them all, but a lot of them are celebration.
Yeah.
It's just that when we read it, we don't read it in context with emotions.
Yeah.
We just read it as words.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a robot, so I'm just going to read the text like this instead of, oh, Jesus sounded happy in this sentence, but he also sounded angry in this next one. You know, he was sad in this one. You have to read it with the context of history, but also the context of how were those people feeling at that time.
Yeah. And guys, he says in the Old Testament, he's like, so like he talks about how to handle the poor in Deuteronomy. He says if you do it this way, you'll have no poor. But I know you won't do it this way, so like there will always be poor, right? Mm-hmm. And he basically says like, hey, I'm trying to like party with you guys, like have a good time on earth, like you know what I'm saying? But you guys consistently want to do the opposite of what is good, so then everyone suffers. So
if you read like I keep going back to that book Theo Osby because it's so profound, man. But and he was talking about because it talks about like these so basically there's Jehovah, and then all of the angels in heaven, he refers to them as all gods. And he sends the gods to the earth to redeem the people. And when they come, they're partying the whole time. They're like singing and like they're on ships and they're like the whole time they're rejoicing, and it's all about singing and like
fun.
And like, and just uplifted, like
a good life.
Yeah. It's all about rejoicing. And
I mean, if once you know the reality of God, how could you not be happy? Yeah. You know, how could you not want to celebrate it with others?
Yeah, it's all about celebration.
And the ones that I'd be like, I don't know, it doesn't seem that fun. I'm like, because you don't really understand it.
Yeah,
you don't get it.
Once you experience God, you could never go back. Like, because the reason that you don't is because you've never experienced it.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's nothing on earth that compares to the experience of God. But if you've never experienced it, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And that's why you would do all these fallen things and all these things. That's why a lot of people don't understand the power of their own solitude. That's why you're like, I like being by myself. Me too. Because that's the time I get to spend with God.
Yeah.
And it's way more fun than hanging out with people.
Exactly. Like reading, just, praying. Like, yeah.
I can't even do security in bars anymore because just sitting in there in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
The next couple of days, I'm having terrible days. Like they're bad. I'm tired. I'm angry.
Yeah.
I'm short.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thoughtfully sinning, and it's like I don't even want to like. I started canceling my bar days because for security because I go in there, and I have to accept that people are going to sit in front of me. Because I accepted a job, I'm not going to say anything. Yeah. I'm just going to let everybody contribute evil around me, and it's like, oh, even though you're not participating, you're absorbing it.
Yeah.
You're witnessing it. You're hearing it. You're feeling it.
Hey man, the last time I went is to record a video for my friend. He asked me to come for his birthday, man, and I really felt the pain of being there. And like, then we leave, and I end up getting in an argument with the person I came with, and it was just a whole terrible experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm never going back to no.
You don't even have to participate in evil.
No.
Yeah. Just
being around it.
Just absorbing it.
Yeah,
in any
it
form.
just got on us.
Yeah.
And turned into a terrible night.
Because there's a different realm around us that we don't understand, so we don't understand how we're absorbing it.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, I'm not gonna cuss, but I'm gonna surround myself with bad people or stuff like that, right? And so
I'll say this last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel when I worked security at the I worked there for like 4 years.
Where?
Housing.
Okay.
Section 8.
Yeah. And at a certain place, like there's cool people there. But like what always used to get me is the people who were always fighting, drinking, all that stuff, breaking the rules, were the older people. And then they would mess with younger people, get their ass handed to them, and then come running to me, and I'm like, well, what did you think was going to happen? And then it got so on me. And then also them taking advantage, watching people take advantage of each other, like for drugs, for like meaningless things, like beating people, getting them jumped, like seeing people that I know that I've talked to, right? And they'll set up somebody, and like this one person, they tried to drag back into their apartment and like rob them and beat them. And luckily, she was able to like hang on and someone called the police. I wasn't there at that point, but it was someone I talked to a lot. And so she came down and she was like, yeah, they tried to rob my apartment. And I'm like, what? And then she was like, yeah, it was so-and-so's friend. And it's like the lady that lives like next to her almost. I'm like, dang. Like it just watching that over and over, like it just wears on your soul. Like
just imagine just living in it. Imagine being a child and growing up in it.
That would like, man.
No chance.
Yeah, like
you ain't got no shot.
If your grandpa's, if your grandpa's a dirt, not really a dirtbag, but like, not on the up and up, and is doing stuff like that, and then your mom and all, like, there's nothing. There's like,
you don't even see no light.
No. And that's what, like, it just wears on my soul.
And then when you go in there, just listen to the music. Oh my Lord!
I can't.
It's just normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just normal to just be playing that in front of our kids and whatever. It's just normal to just do that.
Yeah.
It starts with the kids, and that's why they're attacking the kids in society right now.
Yeah. And I'm like, and then they sit there and tell me like, oh, the white man's doing this, and I'm like,
no, you're
why
doing
are you
that.
telling me about the white man? I haven't seen a white. But there is white people that live there, but most of the time, like,
nah, man, you the one doing it.
Yeah,
I'm watching you.
Like I sit there and I walk out there and I be like, they all out there drinking. I'm like, you guys know you're not supposed to be drinking out here. Like, cause y'all messed it up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and they're like, oh, da. And I'm like, yeah, all right, when I come back out here, just don't be out here. So I walk back in, right? And then, so I finish my patrol of the building and go, put it in the log. And then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna walk out there and see if they're out there. Walk out there, they're fucking fighting. I'm like, what? Wait, stop. Like you're like 60. And you're like 70. Like, why are you having a fist fight? Like, this don't make no damn sense.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Those are children.
They are. Like,
they're grown. They're children in big bodies. No maturity. And like that's what happens when you never take accountability for anything that you've ever done.
Yeah.
You never mature. So you turn into a big baby.
I had to leave. One day, so there's one day when I was like, I called, I was like, I just quit. Because it was on near the 4th of July. And I watched one dude light it, another dude throw it, and they popped it. And I was like, hey, you can't light those on property. You can go off, like, just the road's right there. I can't say nothing to you in the public road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then he's like, I didn't do it. And I'm like, I just watched you do it. And he's like, well, I just lit it. Like, he threw it, and then the dude was like, I didn't throw it. I'm like, oh, snap. Because, like, it got so ridiculous that I looked at him, like, you're just a lying-ass nigga. And then, and I knew when I lost all professional. Like,
yeah.
I was at that point where I was like, I'm about to knock this motherfucker. Because it just builds up over time. Like, I watched them lie to my face. And then I was like, I watched you on camera. Like, it's on camera. I can replay it.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, oh, I didn't do it. And I'm like, oh, I just want to. But I'm just going to write it up. I'm going to go back here, like, and it just eats at you. I'm like, yeah, like I said, like, big children. I'm like, I'm babysitting. This should be an easy job. I should just have to come here, make sure no one from the outside is messing up. Like, I shouldn't.
But I got to watch all y'all.
Yeah.
The people that live here.
And I'm
supposed to be protecting you.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's why I had to leave, man. I was like, I can't do it. Can't do that. 1,000th report on the same address every single day. Can't do it. And then housing was like, why don't you guys fix the problem? You guys are out here for a reason.
Like, because you're the one that can fix it.
I left. 2 months later, look what's happening down there. 2 months later, it's crazy the calls I get.
Yeah.
This is what happened here. This is what happened here. And guess what? They're still talking about me. They still don't like me.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening when I was working.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But they respect you. Like, that's the thing. It's like, one of the things I told you, I was like, if you're going to do something, you got to be consistent with these people, right? And that's what you had, like, so, like, I'm a little bit more lenient than he is. Like, I was like, hey, if you do this, and then if you mess it up, like, then, like, I'm going to have to, like, I have to enforce the rules. And then sometimes I'll be walking, and they'll do something right in front of me, and I'm like, yeah, you just had to wait till
I was walking with the new guard there. I won't say his name, but I was walking with him, and this dude opens his car door right in front of us and starts pissing behind his door.
Yeah.
And he's like, evening, gentlemen. And I looked at him, and I was like, you effing moron. There are kids outside.
Yeah.
And then the new guard was like, you can't say that. I'm like, F that guy.
Yeah.
Like, you don't casually talk to me while you're just disrespecting my authority.
Like, shut up, new guy. Like, I've been here. Trust me, give it a little time. Like, I tell everyone, they'll be like, oh, this. I'm like, just give it some time. Like your whole attitude is gonna change, your outlook.
Or
like,
when I was trying to get that corner place evicted,
yeah,
with the mom and the son, and because the son just kept lying to my face.
oh,
As a grown man, he's 30, and I'm just like, stop. He's like, okay, and then he'll go leave, and then the mom will play victim, and then the next day they'll try to run past me like I don't see him. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
you're like, because he was trespassing. I'm like, you're letting him. You trespassed him. You came up to me and was like, he's threatening me. I don't want him here, so I trespassed him for you because you're the resident and he's not. And then the next day, you're blaming me that he's not allowed on the property, and that now you're evicted.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to just follow what you put down.
So last story I'll tell.
I didn't even know he was on the property until you came up to me and was like, "Hey, he threatened me in my house." I was like, "Okay, where's he at?" Over there. I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, like so. There's before you. There's at that place. There was a Mexican lady that lived there. She had two brothers. Her brothers would always come there, and they would just destroy shit. Like they would rob people, all that stuff. And I knew, like, I already knew. So I get there, like, hey, like one time, me and the sheriff were sitting in the office talking because he worked, and then a person comes up and they're like, oh, a kid's getting robbed, and I already knew when I got there who it was gonna be. And so we go out there, we get there, and then who do we see getting up and running? Like, shh, her brothers. And I'm like, where are you going? They ran back to her house. I'm like, what are you doing? So like I go there and I'm supposed to trespass him, and I come there like, I gotta trespass your brother, right? And she's like, she looks at me, she's thinking, and she goes, well, you're racist. And I'm like, what? And then she realized what she had said, and she looked at us like, she's like, against Mexicans. And I'm like, I was like, hold on. So I literally walked all the way down the way, walked out of sight, and I was like, oh God. Then I came back, I was like, here's what I'm gonna do. Like,
remember I got called a predator against black single moms? Because they're all black single moms, and so I write them all up because they're all doing bad stuff that they're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And then she came out of her apartment, was all triggered. She's like, "You're a predator, and I'm reporting you to Tiana." and it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, you guys did it.
Yeah.
You guys categorized yourselves. So.
Yeah. Like, and that's what the thing is. Like, I used to get so mad. I'm like, the only reason I'm standing here is because you're putting me in your business. I don't want to be in your business. Like, at this point, I was like fed up with this. But I was like, I don't want to be here right now, standing here having this conversation with you. But when you, that's right.
Yeah.
But when you like do a fist fight, and I'm standing right here, and you're looking right, like we're making eye contact here, and you're still trying to fight this dude. And like, now I have to be here, and it's like, why are you doing this to me? Like, you could have waited till I walked, because I literally would have walked past the building as you just been sitting out here chilling, and then you guys could have did whatever you did, and then by the time someone told me you'd be gone, and all I can say is, oh well, I'll just write in a report, and they can figure it out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't put me in your business. Like, hate it. Anyway, so we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, it's okay though. Yeah, it's alright. It was a good talk.
Yeah.
Good talk.
I would say, well, let's end it, and then something else good would pop up. Well, never mind.
2 hours later.
That's okay though. That's all right.